thank you for being here. So very briefly, my name is Jacob. You can find me on LinkedIn. I do some writing on Medium. You can send me an email, that's always nice. I am Swedish, but I live in Copenhagen. I am going to talk today about this book. Anybody read it? No? If you don't take anything else away with you from this talk, then it's go to read this book. It's a brilliant book about time management for mortals. The title, 4,000 Weeks, is an average life. So if that doesn't get you going, then I don't know what is. So I will share my personal lessons, a few of my personal lessons from this book. So the first one, and the kind of overarching theme of this whole book, is human finitude. We're finite as human beings. There's 24 hours in a day. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to do some other things to get by. And there's just so much that we can do as human beings. There's a limit. We're finite. Berkman introduces the concept that he calls living in deep time. So the idea of clocks and the idea of time is pretty recent. Actually, during the medieval ages, people weren't controlled by clocks. People were controlled by nature. There was a sunrise, there was a sunset. There was an ever stream of tasks that you had to do. You had animals that needed taken care of. The next day, it was the same. People were not rushed. People were not burned out. I mean, don't get me wrong, medieval ages had other issues, but it was definitely not about ticking tasks off. And what Berkman says is, maybe we should get back to some of this. Maybe we should not care that much about the past and spend so much energy on the future, but care more about what we're doing right now. Escaping the efficiency trap. Berkman calls himself a recovering productivity addict. So he spent time writing columns for a newspaper where he tried out different productivity systems. And the more things you tick off in your productivity system, the more work you get back. The more emails you send, the more replies you get. The more tasks you do, the more tasks people will come with. Inbox zero is a fallacy. It doesn't exist. So what he says is, when he was doing all these productivity tricks, he was ticking off a lot of things and he was squeezing more stuff into it, but he wasn't getting the right things done. He wasn't getting those big projects that actually mattered to him done. He never even got them started. We often talk about the fear of missing out, but there's a joy in missing out. So Berkman often picks on online dating and social media because we're exposed to an endless amount of options, an endless amount of people we could date, an endless amount of events that we could attend, an endless amount of books and articles that we could read and do. But if we were not exposed to all these things, if we chose something and then just stuck with that choice, not reflecting on whether it's the best choice, we actually feel the joy of missing out, the joy of missing out on all these other things. Deciding. Every day we're faced with a lot of decisions, and this is draining. I'm a manager. I don't like making decisions. It takes a lot of effort. And not making a decision is also draining. So staying in the fork in the road is also, there are tricks you can do to reduce the amount of decisions. There's the story of Obama, where he has a whole wardrobe of only black suits and white shirts so that he doesn't have to make the choice of deciding what to wear in the morning. He just picks something from the wardrobe. Always the same thing. I don't know what happened. Does this work? Great. All right. So continuing, decisions. So we have to make a lot of decisions, but it's kind of like the joy of missing out. What if we made a decision and we stuck with it and we didn't reflect that much on all the options? Actually, most of our decisions are reversible. Reflecting back on my own life, I can think of two things in my own life that are completely irreversible. Those are my kids. The rest, I mean, I could move. I could get a new job. I could learn a new language. I could get a divorce. I'm not saying any of these things are easy. I'm just saying it's possible. So we can make decisions and move on instead of spending too much time and effort on thinking whether it's the right decision or not. Limiting work in progress. This is something we all recommend to our teams, right? It's a great productivity thing. We know low WIP, that's wonderful. But that's true for ourselves as well. Multitasking doesn't exist. It's just very, very quick context switching, which is very expensive. So what this is about is making sure that you focus on a few things, that you don't spread yourself too thin. What Berkman suggests is create one long list of all the projects and all the things, that personal goals that you could ever be doing. Keep adding to that list, but have a shorter one, a one with closed WIP, maybe 10 items of projects that you are actually actively pursuing. And don't add anything else to that list unless you take something off, unless you stop pursuing it for some reason, or maybe you're done. Personally, I really like personal Kanban. I highly recommend that as a system if you find that helpful. That also helps you with lowering WIP. Planning. I love planning. I'm a manager. And the problem is not planning per se, but how we treat our plans. We think we can predict the future. We can't. So do plan, but hold your plans lightly. Make sure that you can change them. It's fantastic how unagile people are, even though we preach agility to teams. I really like thinking in bets, which is a way to look at this from a different angle. So instead of planning and estimating, how much time and effort do I want to bet on a certain initiative? How much time do I want to spend on it? And then have a new decision point, let's say a few weeks or months down the road. Do I want to keep investing in this, or am I done? The done list. We all have to-do lists. I have multiple to-do lists. I'm sure you do as well. But the problem with to-do lists is they're created with this plan. They're created with the idea that we're not finite. We just add a lot of stuff to that to-do list. I never get to the bottom of my to-do lists. Never. And that's the problem, because we start every day in depth. We start every day in looking at that long list of things that we have to do, and then we just spend the whole day doing stuff. So what Berkman suggests is turn this on its head. Try having a done list instead. Basically, don't plan the day and just add stuff to the list when you've done with them. When you've done something, add it to the list. You brushed your teeth. Yay! Add it to the list. And it's a very rewarding way to look at your day, and actually allows you to make a decision of, I'm going to do this because I want to, not because I added it to my to-do list at some point in the past. So time is often seen as a budget good, and it's not. Time is actually a network good. So what that means is we try to preserve our time and spend it carefully. But time is more valuable when we spend it with others. There's a multiplier effect to it. Now, all of these productivity systems, they always say, well, you should isolate yourself so that you can focus on your task and get it done and then pick up the next task. But there's a fallacy to that. There's a problem with that, because then you're all alone. And in the extreme, this individual flexibility and freedom with digital nomads, for example, a lot of interviews have shown that they're very lonely. So what Berkman suggests is give up some of that individual flexibility to spend it with others, to spend it together with other people. Join an organization, join a sport, some kind of community. For me, this has been joining the Scouts as a leader and having a scheduled time where I spend time with others. And finally, I want to leave you off with some cosmic insignificance therapy. In the bigger picture, the things we do, our lives, amount to more or less nothing. Really, it's pretty pointless. It doesn't make that big of a difference. Not to humanity, it doesn't. And I think this is really liberating. All those choices that you have to make, all those things you think are so important, they won't make that big of a difference. People don't care that much. However, you can make a big difference to the people around you, your closest friends, your family, your coworkers. So focus on them instead. Leaving you off with some references. The book, Thinking in Bets, is also a great book. The Waking Up course and Making Sense podcast, this is where I picked up these ideas to begin with. I wrote a blog post about this some time ago, and then the personal Kanban system. Thank you so much for listening.